Okay, the next recipe I'm going to do is a fruit galette. Basically, it's a pie without a pie tin. The crust can vary. You do whatever you want on the crust. You can use phyllo dough. Phyllo dough is going to have a little more, it's like what they make baklava out of. It's that really thin sheets. You can use a pie dough. I'm using puff pastry. It's going to rise a little today. Again, this is your recipe. Use the kind of crust that you'd like to use. I'm going to do a variation on this with the ingredients I have. I'm going to stick to the recipe, but I'm going to do a baked brie and puff pastry too and show y'all how to kind of do that. Okay, brie cheese. It's a soft ripened cheese. This is imported from France. It's Rennie Picot. We sell it down in our specialty cheese case. Fabulous company, fabulous artisan cheese. It's handmade. No machinery involved. Yeah, there's machinery involved in moving this stuff, but when they're curing this cheese, so to say, they sit there, and every day, what you're seeing out on here is called the flurry or the rind. This soft, almost looks like paper on it, but it's called the flurry. And what they do, they come through every day with a damp towel, and they wash it. They just wipe it down with the damp towel, and it'll grow a little the next day. They come by and wipe it down again, and it'll keep forming, and every time they wipe it, it starts another little crust on it. So they continually do this until they get this nice white look to it, and when it's perfectly white like that, through their cheese making process, they've got to figure it out over a couple hundred years of cheese making. It's family owned still. They come out with a beautiful brie. This is a double cream brie. There's also triple cream brie, which is a little creamier, richer. Melts really quick though, so I chose just a standard double cream brie, and we're going to bake with it, so it's going to melt down real nice. Okay, where should I start on this one? Let's start with fruit. Okay, this recipe calls, if I remember right, yeah, it's about a half a cup of different kinds of fresh fruit in here. Generally, I take one kind of fruit, like a hand fruit, and use it either being a pear, an apple is usually the last choice on those, but usually a pear, a nectarine, a peach is really nice. Pears, nectarines, peaches really aren't locally in season right now, so I didn't go that direction with them. So trying it with kiwi today. Your fruit can vary. I'm using strawberries. These beautiful blackberries. I could have picked raspberries, but I just felt like doing blackberries. Got some really nice organic blueberries, real nice for this time of year, and then our kiwi. What I did with the strawberries was just nip the top, stood it up, a couple of cuts that way, maybe 2 cuts that way, and then if you want, you can set it down and just make one more cut, and you end up with some diced berries. So it's pretty easy to do. The kiwi, how to tell when a kiwi's fresh. Who buys kiwis? Okay, I always check, first of all, it needs to be firm. Too soft, your fingers go through it, obviously no good. But another way to check is get this growing end right here and press. If it gives just a little bit, you're good to go. If it doesn't give, it means it hasn't softened up to eat yet. And again, if you push in and your finger goes through, well, you know what to do then. Okay, same thing I did with the grapefruit. Remember, I kind of knocked it off, and what did I cut it in? 4s. Get that quadrant going. You get 4 and 4. And then that just leaves the 4 ends to nip. One of the reasons I like to cut the fruits like that is if I'm doing a fruit tray, I'll show you what I mean here. All but one. If you're doing like a sliced fruit tray, And you want your fruit, and then you want to shingle it down. It kind of stays, I don't know if you could all see that, but it stays consistent where I got the edges cut here. If I didn't do that, I might end up with laying them out like that, you know, and because they're going to be all different shapes and stuff. So I do it like this way, so when I'm doing something that requires a little artistic value to it, things are consistent. Well, I remember when kiwis were considered exotic fruit, and now they're pretty much commonplace. Really healthy for you. Antioxidants, loaded, vitamin C, it's loaded with it. And they're pretty good to eat too. I like kiwi and banana together for some reason. Okay, so fruits I chose. Now if this was a pear, nectarine, or a peach, or an apple, I'd cut it the same size. Now the apple, I'd probably go a touch smaller because it's going to be a little firmer in there. This dessert does not require a whole lot of time to bake. It's not like it's a 45-minute to an hour kind of pie. So the softer the better. We're going to add Brie cheese to this. I'm going to cut that Brie in half. And the Brie is very mild tasting. I'm going to go ahead, for baking purposes, I'm going to cut the rind off. We'll just quarter it here so we can get the rest of this rind off relatively easy. And it's not going to hurt it. What it's going to do though, if I kept it on there, it's almost like a case. You know, it's encased in there, and it's not going to melt through the dessert as quickly. This will just kind of melt on in, add a really unique flavor to it. Can also use white cheddar cheese in here if you choose to. That goes good with it. Gets a little, got to watch how much you put in. You want to use a little less. And you can also use fresh mozzarella cheese, which is really neutral in flavor. Another one you can use, I cooked with it, I think the first time we did it up here was at tiramisu mascarpone cheese. It's kind of like a soft cream cheese, a sweetened soft cream cheese. That's ideal for cooking with, and it'd go great in here. It's gonna just melt down real quick for you. Now on the Brie, just gonna take some chunks. I sliced it. Got chunks relatively the same size, you know, as the majority of the fruit. Yeah, they're not like the blueberries, but they're matching up with 3/4 of the fruit, the different fruits being used. Then I'm going to break it up just a tad, just kind of separate it out. Now another cheese that's closely related to Brie is Camembert, and that's aged a little longer. It's a softer cheese. It's still a semi-soft cheese in the semi-soft family. It's a little different flavor to it. Not much. It's a little creamier. It's not as white, and it is softer. You could bake with it, but it's more of a table cheese. Baking with it, it really just kind of disappears into nothing when you're working with it. Okay, so I got my Brie in here, and then the recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of fruit of each. So, well, we'll kind of measure. I was close. We'll forget about that guy there. So we got a little for there, just a little for the safe side. These blackberries, man, they're going to dominate inside of this dish here. Okay, there's a good 1/2 cup of blackberries. Boom. Okay, about a 1/2 cup of kiwi with a little cheater blueberry on the bottom there, but That'll be all right. And then we're going to go with a half a cup of our organic blueberries. Then you just want to mix it all together initially. Now what we're going to do, we're going to add, and I doubled this, I believe it calls for 2 tablespoons, it does, 2 tablespoons of flour. So I doubled that, so that was 4, so that's about right. Same with the sugar, I doubled that, so I'm going to use half of what I've got out here, 2 tablespoons-ish. We're going to mix that around. Something that's not on the recipe, and what this is going to do is, I think, you know, if you've ever made a pie, that's just going to coat the fruit, kind of pull it together and make that little syrup or slurry inside of there. The recipe doesn't call for it, but I'm stuck on mint. I'm still in last week's cooking class, cooking with herbs, but a little fresh mint. Again, this one, you're not going to want to get those stems in there. So you're going to want to pick that mint around like we did last week. You just want to pick them apart. You bruise them, pick them. Get those oils flowing out of there. And we don't have to use a lot. You know, generally, if you guys have been following along when I'm cooking, last week was a good example. I didn't really add salt to anything. Kind of left the pepper just a little bit. You know, I like to let the main body of the dish kind of speak for itself. And there we go. We just got a little mixture of mint, 4 kinds of fruit, and double cream Rennie Picot Brie cheese.